Hey everybody, Scout Crafty here again. It's Friday, TGIF. It's the day before the 4th of July. A big celebration here in the States. It's a beautiful day out. Got a lot of footage from during the week, and also we got a spectacular show today. Let's get downstairs and get started. Okay, we're down the shop. We have our 4th of July flag. You can see hanging up here. That flag, believe it or not, is made in the United States of America. They're hard to find these days. Got that one at Tractor Supply. We got a few things, like I said, to talk about in this episode, the day before the 4th of July, and a couple of things have shot during the week that we'll talk about. And, you know, I was thinking the other day, when I was a kid, I used to be into science. I used to love science. But as I get older, history is where I find really interesting, you know. And the more I study history, the more I realize that, you remember hearsay? Remember when my sister was big into courtroom dramas, like Perry Mason growing up, and you would always see on the courtroom drama where somebody would say something and they'd say objection, hearsay, and the judge would say sustained. And I always said, what is that? What does that mean? And basically what that means is you don't accept secondhand knowledge. In other words, you only take knowledge from people that were there, that actually saw it happen. Anybody else, like, you know, say, well, he said it happened. That don't count. Unless he's the one on the stand, you can't, it's hearsay. And then I started thinking about how much of what we know is hearsay. Everything that's written in a textbook is hearsay. Everything that is written in a magazine or on the internet, it's all hearsay. You know, none of us were there. You can't even trust what you see. You know, you see how things are manipulated to make it seem, you know, they make crowds seem bigger or smaller from camera angles. It's amazing. Hearsay. And I was thinking about that because I was saying, why is it that half the country feels one way about one thing and half the other feels another way? You know, it's all about, you know, hearsay, about who you want to believe that's telling you these things. And imagine if we would all just forget about everything that we read, everything, and just don't pay attention to anybody except for firsthand knowledge, you know? And it's, you know, I find amazing is that the further we get away from these people, you can get people to put a spin on anybody. I could take, you know, you could take Jesus Christ and you could dig up dirt on you, make up a book on Jesus. You know, this has been 2,000 years since he's been around. And now you're going to dig up dirt and make up things or anything else, anybody else in history. It all depends on the guy that's behind the book and who's pushing it or whatever. So you can't trust anybody. You got to, the only people I trust are what I see with my own eyes. And even then, if I, you know, depending on how I see it, if I don't see it, I don't count seeing it through video as counting as seeing it, because you don't know that could be doctored. Hearsay. Pretty interesting. Okay, let's see what we got today. First up, you remember great-grandpa's hammer from the other day, the one I shortened the handle, whatever, and I said I plugged the back. Well, a good friend of the show by the name of Topper Bertram, he had mentioned, he says, you know why a lot of the holes were in the bottom of the handles is they used to stuff it with beeswax, and then they would put the nail in there, and that would help drive the nail through hard woods like oak and other hardwoods. And I said, that is absolutely phenomenal. I never knew that. So that's why a lot of times you'll find, this is, you know, turn of the century stuff, but you'll find holes in the bottom of hammers is because they used to fill it with a beeswax so that they can lubricate the nail. That is just, thank you so much, Topper. I didn't even know that. Outstanding. Okay, next up, like I said, I got some footage from the from during the week. You know, you know, I love the nature around us and rainbows. I'm big into rainbows. You know, every time it rains and the sun is out, I'll jump out of my car, whatever, and look for the rainbow. I remember the best rainbow I ever saw in my life was probably about 1981 or 2, something like that, in Mexico. Mexico, oh my God, I saw a rainbow that was just unbelievable, and it stays in my mind. So now I try, and every time I see a rainbow, I shoot it. Here's a couple I saw during the week. There's a double rainbow. You ever see a double rainbow? That's, you know, one on top of the other. You don't see them too often. Just saw that the beginning of the week. That was like on Tuesday or something like that. And then later on that week, I saw this.
How awesome is that? Can you see that? There's the rainbow. Look at that. How often do you see one of those? And this is 2 in 1 week.
Okay, next up, you know I'm still cleaning up upstairs, and you got to see what I found the other day. I said, we got to do this for this 4th of July special. Check it out. Okay, I have boxes and boxes of knives and locks and things like that I just put away, but I was looking through this one box, and I found this. This is something I bought a while ago. Check out this knife. Is this not iconic? I just love this. Now, what's so cool about this, first of all, this is really cool. Look at it on the back. This knife was owned by Doug Gibbs back in 1973. Doug Gibbs. How cool is that? That this guy carried this when he was, God knows where he carried it. Now, look at this beautiful knife. It's a nice shape. It's just got a lot of staining on it. You'll see the staining here. See that? That's all staining. And although it's not pitting, it's staining. And you got to get out staining. You got to go below it. You really can't wish it out, you know. You have to get below it. But we got a lot of staining on one side of the knife. Not so much on the other. But look at the handle. How beautiful is that, huh? Look at that. I mean, there we have it. Looks like a Native American, maybe. This is just so cool, isn't it? Look at that. I love that. And it's got, you know, some kind of bone, maybe, or maybe it's it's probably maybe a plastic, maybe even, or so. I don't even know if this is a real bone or plastic. You don't know, but we'll clean it up. It's just a beautiful knife, and to know that Doug was carrying this back in '73, let's see what we can do with it. Now, like I said, staining is really hard to get out. Here I had to go sanding, then the fiber wheel. But I tell you, the fiber wheel buffing, any wheels around a knife is the most dangerous operation in the shop. Please be very careful. You remember when we were kids, there was a game called Telephone? It was an ingenious game. Whoever thought of it was a true genius. You know, you would line up a bunch of kids and you would whisper something into the first kid's ear, and then they would repeat it all along a line to each other without anybody hearing except the next person. And when you got to the end of the line, you asked the person to repeat what they said, and it was totally different from the first person, what you told the first person. And remember that game? Whoever thought about that? True genius. Another absolutely beautiful white puffy cloud, blue sky day. This is just unbelievable. You know, the other night I was looking out and I saw some lightning bugs, and there was one caught in a spider's web. This guy here, and he was wrapped up pretty good. You can't even see it, but it took me about 25 minutes with a toothpick and some corn oil to get that spider web off him, and then I released him back. I just couldn't bear to see this guy trapped in the web flashing away all night. Okay, next up we reconditioned the sheath. You could see, remember how stiff it was, and look at it now. Now it's all it's oiled, and what we used for this here is we used this product is called Hubert's shoe grease. Now it says since 1929, but back in 1921, A.E. Hubert started making this, and this stuff is amazing. And if you see here, it says it has it's oils and waxes, but no animal fats or tallow. This stuff is fantastic. They've been using this for, like I said, almost 100 years. And what it looks like inside, let me show you. Now, the texture of this is almost like a petroleum jelly, but a little bit thinner. You can see here. And I want you to smell this. Smell this. You smell that? Oh, let me tell you, this smells exactly like an old pine campfire. And you can see here by the directions, you just you basically clean the leather and add this to it. But you can see here that this has no animal fats or tallow in here, so it's really a good product. It's beeswax and oils and things like that. And you could tell when you, depending on the product you use, like I have Obernoff's and I have other leather treatment, but a lot of that has a little bit more wax on there. Any product that you have for leather that darkens it means it's being absorbed by the leather. So when you have something that's stiff or going to crack, you want something that absorbs the oils and things like that. You don't want to use shoe polish for something that's really overly dried out. You want to rejuvenate the leather first. So that's what we did with this, and now it's nice and supple. And like I said, this Hubert shoe grease, since 1929, actually he started making it in 1921, so it's almost 100 years old. And you can see here, great stuff. A lot of people swear by this stuff, but I wanted to use this because the sheath really was getting too dry. And we finished up with this project. Look at this. We took out all of the staining in the blade. You could see here, all of the staining is gone. This side I really didn't touch because this side was in good shape to begin with. I just polished it up a little bit, but you can see here, this is the original side here, and this is the side that I did. So it's very close, you know, and I just wanted to get rid of all that staining because, and staining happens a lot of times because, you know, you really shouldn't store your knives in a sheath. You know, there's moisture always in a sheath, you know, and even though this one was dried out, but you saw the staining that was on there, maybe when it was new. What I do is I take the sheath here. I like to put a cardboard sleeve over or something and just lay it on top of the sheath like that in storage. But, you know, we all do it. We store it inside the sheath or something. So if you're going to do that, you got to always keep an eye on your blade. But here, check out this, the handle. Like I said, I don't know if it's plastic or whatever, a bone, a faux bone, F-A-U-X bone. But really nice looking. I cleaned that up, and you see the red and white bands are all cleaned up. And look what I did. The head looks nice. Look how beautiful that is, huh? That is just really cool. And you can see here, everything is nicely done. Now, what I was thinking about, that Doug Gibbs, 1973, he's probably about 13 years old when he bought this. You know, this is a teenager's knife. He was probably in Scouts or something around there. So you figure he was born in 1960. That would make him 60 years old now. So he's probably still around, you know. He's probably somewhere still around. And I wonder if, wouldn't it be something if Doug was watching? Now you can see here the markings on the knife are GC Co. Japan. Well, that stands for Gutmann Cutlery Company. And they were out of New York back in 1947. He was a distributor and importer of different knives from Germany, Japan, all over the place. And by 1957, his company really took off because he became the sole distributor for Puma knives. So I think he's still around today. You know, back when I was in Scouts, I really would have enjoyed a knife like this. You know, it's just, it's kind of an iconic design, huh? With that head on the back or something, and it really does feel good in the hands, you know. It doesn't, it has, you would think that maybe it's not contoured or something, but it's good. It has a grip to it. I really enjoy this knife. It came out nice, and tribute to Doug wherever he is. So in closing, I hope everybody has a great 4th of July, and if anybody got triggered by that image of Mount Rushmore, or maybe the head of the Indian on the back of a knife, thinks it's racist. If any of you, the woke people out there, got triggered, then I'm doing my job. All right, have a nice day. Take care now. Bye-bye.